Hello everyone. For the lab of today, you have the part of using methods. And for all these methods, what it means is that you need to think of an algorithm such that you can execute it in the context of an object. So whether you want to manipulate it and to get some value, or whether you have a class and inside the class you have multiple objects of the type of the class. So it means that you have for a method, you have the input parameters. So in this case, you can have just the braces. So you can have 0 parameters, or you can have, like in this case, you can have 2 parameters. Then you think like this, that you can have as output a value. So you need to specify which is the type of the method, so what it will return, whether it's an integer, a double, or a string. And whether you do not have a value at all, it means that you will have here as the return type a void. Okay. Then for this method, as you can see, you will just have which one is the maximum value. So in your class, you define the method which is in compute max. Okay, and for it you have to input parameters such that whether a is greater than b, you return b, and if not, you would return b. So you have two branches based on which for every function you need to think which is the logic behind, and then after coding you also have a return for each and every case. Okay. Oh, let's see. Inside have new package. Okay, dot course 5. Okay, and inside my course 5, I want to have a new class, and let's say this is example 1. Okay, so inside it, you have firstly your accessibility. Okay, accessibility, and this means that you can have it private or you can have it public. Then you have return type. Okay, this one can be void. Okay, if you don't return anything, or it can be another value. Okay, of type int, double, float. Okay, string, or even an object of a certain class. Okay. Then you have the method name, and you have your input parameters. Let's see. Okay. Good. Then let's see, you have a public int and you compute the maximum value. And this is for two numbers. Let's say I have number 1 and number 2. Let's opening the braces, and here you have the cases. If A is greater than B, okay, then you return A. Oh, this one maybe I have number 1, number 2. Okay, so whether we have the first number greater, we return number 1, else it means that in this case you will have to return the second number which is greater. And you test it inside static void name. So in this case you just provide the two values, okay, such that you have the current context. First, you will need an object of this type. You have exercise 1 as being x1 equals new x1. So whether you do not provide the constructor, it will use the default one. And then for it, you have x1 that compute max of 2 values. And don't forget that you return it as an int, so you can store it here. Int result as being this one. And then you have the display. Okay, so let's see. The greatest number is, and then you have your result. So let's see it running. Okay, so creating an instance of the class, this is how you can call the method inside. Okay, and if I put here static context, okay, inside the static context, okay, you see that you have was time. Okay, sorry, some problem appears. So let's see. Okay, and in this context, you can see that whether you do have static in front, you can also call it without having the member of the class. So you can have even compute maximum of 25, 30, and you can simply display it. Okay. The greatest value. Okay. Greatest value, and when choosing between 25 and 30, between 25 and 30 is, let's see, okay, so it would be this one, and I need to close it to be inside my system out print line. So you have it two ways in displaying it, or you create an object of the class and it doesn't have static in front, so you need to have an instance of the class. And if not, you need to put static and you will have exactly the output. Okay, this is for the first example. Then, okay. And here, whether I want to see it as a void, so we can even make it void. So let's have it with no return. Okay, compute maximum of 3. It means here that you will have a cout and you will say that this number, okay, is the greatest. Tuck and closing the brace, else you have cout number 2 is the greatest. Tuck. And I can call it exactly as compute maximum 3 of, say, we have it in this way. and it will simply display the result, and I don't have to do any output. And not so here when you have void, you don't have any return. There is no return. Okay, so you just display the output and that's it. As you can see, even the void main, you don't have any return in it. So this is why you also have it with this void as a return type. And it belongs to the current class. So you call it in a static manner. And from it, you can have exactly the computation. Maybe you want to declare an array list, I mean a list or a string and to manipulate it. Or you can call directly static methods because you're inside a static context. And if not, you need to create an object of the class such that you can call your method. So as you can see, you can also have, as before, with mathematical functions, like with sinus, cosinus. And in this case, you would call each and every method. Okay. So you can get the minimum, maximum. Okay. So you can have this math. And then we have method round, method add a sinus, and so on. So you can get exactly which would be the values. Have hyperbolic. Okay, so you would have the values like this one. Okay, math. All right, and it will simply display the result. So you would have it between the braces. Okay, and you have the value exactly for it. Okay, and it will display exactly the value, how much it would be. So this is when you call functions that were already implemented for you. As you can see, it belongs to the library inside Java Lang Math. So here, as you can see, for a function, you return a value. If you have a procedure is when you have multiple instructions, okay? So this is when you have multiple steps when solving an algorithm, okay? And then you have the method. So the method exists as a key term for the object-oriented programming. So this is like here we have exercise 1 and then we define this method. And when calling it, we need to have it associated to an object of that class such that it can be called. As you can see, it doesn't have the static in front. So if I want to call the compute max, okay, this is how you can call it. You can call it using the current context of two objects. Okay, so here you can do it in this case. But as you can see, you have the this, and because it is not static, it will need to erase the static from it. Now, this is another way of doing it, but you need to erase the statical context. Then here for this method, so in this case, this is when you want to modify a state of the object or when you want to retrieve a value. So it is like last time when we were having the getters, setters. Okay, so yeah, it was with a point. Okay, and with the point of 2 coordinates, so this is in a 2D space, you can set the coordinates, get the coordinates, so you are modifying the value. Okay, so these are methods of your class point. Then you can even have methods like, let's think that you've got an account, and for an account you would have a deposit of 10. So this means that for your object, which is account, you would simply update the value of your deposit. So as you can see, for every method, as I told you, you can have your accessibility. So it means how you can view it. So whether it's private, protected, default, or public, then it can be static or non-static as it was here. Okay, so whether it belongs or not to the class, you have the return type, which is int, float, double, string, or even another object. Or if not, you can have it void if you don't return anything. You have the name of your method, as in this case. And then you've got your parameters, okay, which you separate according to the comma, and you define each and every parameter as according to the type and name. Then when you have exactly the behavior of your method, you put it between curly braces and you've got the content. So here, when you would be asked what represents a method signature, it means that it's the name as well as the parameter list. So it would be exactly this part, okay? Name and parameter list. And you define it as for private, you have the minus, protected it's with hashtag, default it's just by itself without anything in front, or you can have it with public with this plus. Okay. So it means that minus is for private, then you have private protected, okay, as well as you can have it by default without any accessibility, or you can have it with plus as being public. Okay, such that you can have this public static void main. So as you can see, void, it doesn't return anything inside, okay. It just computes the value, it calls functions, and you just display the values, or they remain in the void main such that you can use them further. Then you can define it with double static max. Okay, so it would be like here you have two integers, but you can also define them as being two double numbers. So out of two doubles, you return also a result of type double. Then you can have a class which is account, okay, and it can be protected for it. So let's see if I have this class and its account. Okay, what would I have? Firstly, I need to have a string, okay, and it's an IBAN because it has some number. Also, I can have the string, which is the bank name, okay, so it belongs to some bank, okay. Then I would have what? I would have a private double, and I have my amount, okay. Then for it, I will have the constructor, and it is the name, which is a public account, the name of the class, as well as you provide your input value. So IBAN, bank, and your amount, okay, which would be given by default, such that this of IBAN receives I, this of bank receives B, this dot amount receives A. Okay. Such that you can have the, when you want to modify it, so you can set it. So in this case, what we will modify, it will be exactly the amount. So let's have this one. So with protected, you will have exactly based on the object that you have here. So let's see, protected void deposit. So it is void because I just set a new amount. So I have a double amount, okay, A, let's say, to be different for you to see it differently. And this means that when I want to deposit, this dot amount will receive what? The previous amount, okay, plus the amount which I provide as an input parameter. Then for it, I can also have a protected void, and I have a withdraw. And being with void, it means that I will have to take away a sum of money and to also display. So I will have this. First of all, when you want to withdraw, it means that you need to check if this dot amount is greater or equal than A, then what you can do is that you can withdraw. So it means that you need to update the amount as being with minus the amount So out of it, you would subtract the amount A that I want to take away, and I will have a C out my new amount of money.
So this
Okay.
that amount refers to the amount inside the entire project?
Yeah, it is for the object of type account. So it is the current context when you get one instance of account, because you can
So
have several accounts.
so in all of these classes, the same amount is getting mm, it's changing the value.
Yeah, they have the same behavior, but you would refer to another. So it's always the current instance. It is like a pointer. So it means that here I use the current object. Okay, so this is why you have this, because every object that you have, it is stored inside the memory and you've got an address space. And this means that you use that certain address space for which you modify your attributes, which are IBAN, an account, amount. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
You're welcome.
I want to ask.
Yeah.
I want why we bought a minus.
Because here you want to withdraw. So withdraw means to take away some money. So when I deposit, I add money to my account. When I want to withdraw, I take away money. Okay, so I extract money from the account, and this is why from the current account you can have this minus equal, or you can write it as this dot amount equals this dot amount minus A. Okay, so it is the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I have another question. Why did you put protected void there? Or what is the difference?
This is based on how you can access it. Okay, so we will see when I initialize it. Wait, just to say that here you don't have enough amount, not enough funds. Okay. Okay, not enough money. Okay. Let's see. Now, when I want to create this instance, and I have string args. Okay, it means that I will have an account A1 as being a new account, and you need to provide your parameters. Okay, and then it's my bank and some amount. Okay, and now for A1, it means that it is protected for what you have outside for it. So for example, you would also have a driver class. This is just for the creation. Then if I have here a driver class being outside, so the driver class means that you have just the void main and make static void main, and I have my string args. Okay, if I have this account, okay, it sees which one of it is. So it will be again with a new account. Let's copy it, write it several times. Okay. Here you see that you also call it in the following way with A1, and it will belong just to what you have here inside of your account. Okay, so they being private, all the fields, okay, they exist just whether you want to call it based on the class. And if I have account dot, okay, you see that you have the current context of the class, and then after being inside it, I see that I have both of them. So they exist as being part of it just after entering this account. Okay.
But if we go to another file, we won't be able to access them, right?
Yeah, and as you can see, you cannot access it in this statical context. So this is why you have this A1 dot, and then you have deposit, let's say, of 20. Okay, so if I run it, yeah, this is because of my identifier. Let's run it again, being here, took amount. Okay, and I would simply display how much money I have because it's a void, new amount equals, and it would be this dot amount. Okay, and now it would also display your amount. Okay, so you did add 20 and you got your amount. But this is just after having your object, okay, of type amount. And the same is done for your withdraw, okay. So you would also call it based on the method. So let's see. You have A1 dot withdraw, and let's say that I have 200. So in this case, it will say that it doesn't have enough money, okay. As well as you can have A1 dot withdraw of say 30, and you will have exactly the new amount. Okay. So whenever you have the private, you can access it only by the functions which you have inside the class. So you can have these member functions which are allowed to also call your data, members which are also of type private, while for protected, so this is very similar to private, but also this member of the class, it is just inaccessible from outside the class. So this is why you need to address it via another subclass of that class, so to have them linked all together. So it's always with your identifier. Okay. So having that kind of object, you can call it. Okay. Right. Let's see what was over here. Then having it as a method, you have the method context. So as you can see, you have again the word context, which is in fact this which you define. Okay, so you can have it as an object of type string, or it can belong to a class, as it is the case of account. And you can have it as inside the context, or whether it's non-static, as before with this one. Here, when having static, you've seen that you can call it even without having a member of the type exercise 1. Okay. So this method is in fact used for a certain type of object. So you can have two strings, and based on two strings, you can call a method like whether you want it to be with uppercase for one parameter or another. Okay. So it means that over here, let's say I have a string and I will have, let's say, what an operation. And for this one, I will have something like find the greatest value. Okay. So you can have it to display it, and I will have my operation dot to uppercase. Okay, this is how you can call several functions for exactly your type. Yeah. I have several void mains inside. So this is another case. This is similar to your cosigners. Okay, it would be based on the string operations which you can apply here. So this is just one of them. To uppercase, as you can see, you have the character at a certain position. You can compare to string. You can even check whether it contains some sequence of characters, or you can even concatenate based on another string. So you can have like here, find the greatest value or the greatest value equals greatest value and then equals, and you can concatenate it with compute maximum, something like this. But this one, you need to make it a string, okay? So what you can do is to use this wrap such that you get the string value of your argument, okay? So, or you make the method as returning a string, or you can cast it and you have the string and then you have the value of and your expression. So you have it as here, greatest value, and which would be the one based on the comparison. So this is how you can concatenate a string with another one. And remember that you cast the result of a function according to string value of. Okay. So this is something similar with the power, to have 2 to the power 3. Okay, you have the basis and the power. Also, what you can have is that inside the class, you can have also the method which you call according to the name which you define. Okay. And also for it, when you want to call it from outside, you need to specify the name and the context. So this is like where you are having here for the driver, or even inside exercise 1, you need to say which is the type of the object that you create. So this is an object of type exercise 1. Then when you have a method and you have 2 arguments, like here, your number 1, number 2, you need also to provide the values which you have for those 2 parameters. Then all these methods which you've got here inside the main, they are called in a synchronous manner, meaning that you have them executed, okay, one by one, and then you just everything stops when you have the last instruction. Okay, so this is like a procedure. You have it step by step, exactly what your program has to execute. Okay. So in this case, we will have some visualization such that we would compute which is the salary according to a number of hours, and you also have the amount for which you pay your employee per hour. And first of all, you need to check that the number of hours as well as the pay for hour, it needs to be positive. So you cannot have a negative number of hours and neither a negative payment. And when there is this case, you would simply have 0. So whenever you have an algorithm, you need to think of the cases such that maybe the user will mistype and the user will add a minus. So you should trigger that error, think of that case. Let's see if we have this example. And we have a new class. So being inside it, as you can see, we want to call it from main. So this is why you also have the static here in front. So it will be a public static such that you don't need an instance of your classification, and it will be a double compute seller. Okay, so here I have the number of hours and all hours, and I have my double, okay, hourly pay, age pay. All right. So what I need to return, in fact, is an object of type salary. So you can initialize your salary, and then you need to check if my number of hours, okay, is negative. So if you mistype it, or you have the payment as also being negative, okay, then what you would do, you can say that number of worked hours or the hourly payment cannot be negative. Okay. This is just a warning, and you would say that your salary, okay, will be 0. So you return is 0. Then you need to know that for every salary you have by default the number of hours which are less than 40, so less or equal to 40. You have 8 hours per day, 8 times 5, and then it's 40. So you need to have the other case, else if I have my NO hours, okay, to be less or equal than 40, then I would obtain my salary. So the salary which I want to return will be equal to what? I have the number of hours, okay, that I have for this H pay. Okay, this is the payment per hour. Okay, so this would be one of them, for which you need to multiply, okay, with your hourly payment. So it is the number of hours times payment. Then if not, your salary will be equal to what? So whether it exceeds, you have your 40 hours of payment, and then you get paid much more. So you get even another half more. So you've got an increase of your salary, such that you have the 40 hours for which you are paid with normally with the price with H pay per hour, plus you will have an increase, so it's 1.5 times your hourly payment, so it would be paid during the weekend, let's say, and you want to apply this value just for those hours that exceed the ones belonging to your job. So out of the number of hours per contract, this is per week, you subtract 40 and you find out which would be your salary plus extra payment. Okay, and in both cases, at the end you return the salary which was computed. Okay, then you have your void name. Okay, string args, and you get parameter by parameter. So you would find out which is the salary that you retrieve. Okay, let's say it's total salary equals with, you have a compute the salary, let's say you have 44 hours and you have the hourly payment, okay, 20 and so on. Or we can also put it like 9 and you will have a float value. So let's run it from summarization and you get exactly which would be your total payment. Okay, so you have it here for 40 hours, total salary 40 hours. Okay, talk, and you see it here, as well as you see the one based on the bonus. Okay, 4 more hours at a different rate at 1.5. So this is another case. So as you can see here, you don't need an object of your class summarization. You just call exactly the static function. Any questions until now?
I have one.
Okay.
On the second if, why did not use the brackets?
If you have one statement, you can put it without the braces.
Ah, okay.
So if you have more, like here, you need to put it. Okay, because else it will say if this one, and then I have return. So as you can see, it will say that you don't have the if. Okay. So whether you have more lines, not just one, then you put the curly braces. So it is like a block. So whether you're inside if, you have multiple instructions, and this is why you have the curly braces. If you have just one instruction, then you can leave it like here. Okay. And then this is, so it checks the hours, whether they are negative, else it looks whether it is less than 40 or equal, and whether it exceeds 40, it means that you apply this increase, okay, with in fact 50%, to which you add to your hourly payment. Okay. Any other questions up to now? Now here it would be another function where you would also compute the squares, or the squares for certain numbers. So you can define, in fact, your own way of computing. So let's see. We have the square numbers. Okay. Then it is better to put even the method before it, such that here we have this private static to be called from void main. I have an int, so it computes the square of an input variable x. So it will return x multiplied by itself. Okay, so it is at power 2. Then we have the void main, static void main with string args. And inside it, you will have the squares from, let's say, I until 1 to 10. So you need to say, you need to declare I as being of type integer. It starts at 0, let's say, and I will be less or equal than 10. Then it's I++. All right, and after that you would simply display. You can say I have I squared equals, and then I have my square of my number I, which I define, and this is a plus to concatenate my output. Let's see. So firstly, you initialize I with 0, okay? Then if I needs to be less or equal than 10, it will analyze, or it will just execute what you have inside the method one by one, so each and every line, after which you increment I, and I will get again checked, and then you repeat the body of your method. So let's see. All right, you would have one by one how much is each and every value from 0 up to 10 included. So you can have it in this way, or you can see that you also have the math, and then you also have the square root, or you can have the power. Okay, and you can put the power of I and how much you want it to be 2. Okay, so you can have it in this way with math.pow for each and every statement. All right, and math.pow, it will return a double number. As you can see, you have the dot 0 at the end. So, or you can define your own method with the square, or you can use the one belonging to the library, which is this Java lang, and then you've got the math, and for it you call the pow. Okay, so you've got the basis, which is I, and the power to which you want to raise it. Okay. All right. So the second argument is the power of it. Okay. Then this is when you want to call it, okay, for your summarization without, so being with static, you can call it with it inside. Okay. Let's see. This is another way of calling it. Being static, you can call it even without the name of the function. And let's see. This one returns a value, so I can have my summarization that, and I have compute salary of, let's say, 32 and 21. Okay. And from here, because I have multiple void names. Okay. So you can also call it in this way, or if I have it like here, being statical, I have 32 hours, 32 of payment 21, and I have them one by one, and it's identical. Okay, so or you call it without the name of the class in front because it is static. Okay, or you call it with its name, and then you have the method. So it is simply another way of calling your method. Okay. And being public, you can also apply it in this way. So you have you associate it to the context of serialization, and you call the method which is compute set. Then you can also have other mathematical methods, like you can get the absolute value. Let's see, in square. Okay. So here you can have method absolute value, and you can put float 6, let's say. So you would receive which is the absolute value for it. Okay. So you would specify it. Then you can also have it to be at exponential e to some power. You can have the logarithm. You can also see the CL. So the CL is the upper interval for it. So let's see math.cl for this one. Okay, CLing it, it means that you round it to the upper range for it. So it means that it's 3. Okay, while for it, I do it with the floor. Okay, which would be the value for it. You would bring it down. Okay, so it would be 2. Okay, then you can even round it. Okay, you can round your number. So you have the method round according to the value. Let's say this is with 2.6 and we have a 2.4. Okay. Let's see. So for the first case, you obtain the value 3 and you get an integer for it. And for the other one with method round of 2.4, then you get a 2. You can also call exactly the maximum between number 1 and number 2 without defining it with max, as well as the mean. You can even define the power, like here we define, which is the definition of square. And if not, you will have a 4 to compute your power. You can also call the square root, the cosinus, sinus, the tangent, or you can have the random number. This one is the one which you've seen last time. So it is a number between 0 and 1 with open range. And if not, you can call it with the next int according to the value up to which you want to obtain your number. Okay. Also, you have your formal parameter. So this is, in fact, you have the name of the parameter that you've got inside the method. So this is x. And what you can do is to hide it, like I did use here. So it is hidden because for the attribute of the class you have IBAN, while here you will initialize it with I. Okay, so this is how you can hide it. or you can put the exactly parameter, so it can be my IBAN and this one to be IBAN. Okay, so you can write it exactly in the same manner without hiding it. Then you have all of them as you define as being a string IBAN, bank, and amount. Here, when you want to initialize each and every argument, you also provide the exactly same type of your parameter. Okay. And then when you have the end of your method, you won't have any other value retrieved. Okay. So it is like here, you have a static method, you have the value, which is between them, as being the double between A1 and A2. So you need to provide, in fact, which are the values for it. So here you need the return, or if not, it won't do anything. Okay, and you can call it with a max, and you have A1 initialized with 12, while A2 is initialized with 13. So in fact, this A1 and A2 for your method, as well as these that you define here, they are called your formal parameters. And the ones which you receive as values, like here, these are the actual parameters. So you have actual values for them. Okay. Then when you want to address it, so you can do it when you call according to the value, or you have the reference. Like here, you have the A reference for the object of type account, as well as you have the reference to the current context for the object of type account, being in this context of account. So it means that for your formal parameters, you have the data type, such that it can be a primitive data type, an integer, string, double, or it can belong to a certain class, like it is the case of account, or you can even have an array. So it means that for your primitive data value, like I have number 1, number 2, they would be of type primitive, while A1 and the others, they are of type reference. Okay, you have a value inside the memory, and associated to it, I have multiple values. Like here, I have my attributes for IBAN, for the bank, for the amount, and you get them one by one. As well as for your array, you have element by element. So again, you have a reference such that you can parse from the beginning of the array until the end. So now when you want to evaluate each and every parameter, you start from left to right. So in this case, you would define I as being equal to 4, and you will have it here, you have I plus plus. So when you have something like this and you want to display the I will firstly, so whether you want to do the cout of I++, it will display the previous value, okay? And then I will be incremented. So this is exactly as it was presented during the second course, as well as, so you can call it with firstly, when you have the I++, this one will be 4, okay, according to the initial value that you've got. And after performing this evaluation, you will have the value of I equal to 5. So always you read from left to right, okay. So this is why first you display it and then you increment it. Then you have a difference calling. So you can call by value. And this is when having a method, you receive the value that you provide for that caller, or you can call by reference. So the reference is like here, I have this A1, and then I call for it my parameters, my IBAN, B, A. Okay, so you get the location of that value, okay, inside the memory. So you've got an address space for which you've got each and every attribute which its associated value. Then what the method can do is to just change the value that you have stored for your variable, okay, but you do it all by reference. Okay, so even here, when I want to have a deposit, I use this reference of this dot amount, and based on this reference, I update my amount. Or you can define a new value like personalization. Your cell will get updated. Okay, so it's again, cell also exists inside the memory. So for it, you update the value that you have. Okay. So here you can also have the case when you want to have a triple value based on x. So it means that x will be multiplied by 3. Okay, such that you will have this percent of 10. Okay, and it means that you will have the percent for it. Okay, having the value 10, such that whether you do have the calling with x equals x times 3 times x, this percent will still remain at the value equal to 10. So let's do it here. I have my square of I, but as you can see, when displaying I, it will still remain, okay, this 9. All right. So you don't update the value. Then you can also have a triple salary for X. So as I did with the amount, you have the current context for your account. So this is the one. You did deposit, okay. So you did update the value such that here when I want to display, I will have my account has A1 dot, and then we have amount, we can put some, let's say $. I need to run it from here because it's the last ran amount. So as you can see, you did take away some money, and then you just add the value which you have. So usually in dollars, you put the amount in front. Okay, and you've got exactly the amount, which is exactly the one which you did compute for withdraw. Okay, you won't say A1 dot amount equals what you have here as an answer. Okay, you just update the value that you have here by a reference. Okay, you use the attribute, which is amount, of an object of type account, and this one is updated. While when you use this x times x and return it, the value of I does not get updated. Okay. And when we use something like an array, here we have double elements. Let's say square elements. Okay, and this is how you have it defined. Or I can also have it public static void double elements of my array, which is A. Now, for int I equals 0, I is less than my A dot length. Okay, I plus plus. As you can see, for an array, you have it with A dot length with no braces between them. But if I have my string S as being ABC, and I want to get which is a dimension, I have S dot length with braces. Okay, so I have NO characters. Okay, as being S dot length. Okay, so length has these braces for strings. Okay, an array of type int. Okay, an array, so the dimension of an array, dimension of an array is found using just dot length with no round braces. Okay. All right. And when having something like this, you do update the value one by one, So if a of I will be equal to a of I times 2, okay. I can even skip these because it's just one instruction. I don't return anything. And if I call here that I have an int a as having some elements, right? And I have my, I just do the double elements of a. Then if I want to display it, and I want to show the value a of I, okay, a of position plus I, okay, equals, and I have this value. We take it one by one. This is with the amount. Let's run it this one, and let's comment this whole thing. Okay, running it again. So as you can see, when you have an object of your class and you triple the salary and you use the current context of your employee, then it also gets updated and stored, so it changes. When I have it in this case with your array, it also gets persisted, okay? So every element gets updated. But when I use the square, so let's say I have an int no equals 4, and I apply, this is just to display, let's say so, I have square of my no. Okay, and now I want to see val of no equals, and I have my no. Okay. You see here that you did compute the new value of square, but x wasn't updated, even if here I just write it. Okay, you can even have x equals x times x. Okay, and then I return x. It will still not get updated. Okay. So as you can see, it remains 4. But when you provide your array of elements A, this one will be updated. So as you can see here, you go through all the elements and you see that all the previous ones were updated. So here for square, the value of no does not get updated. Here for your array, all the elements of your array get updated. Okay. And even for withdrawing, it also updates. Okay. So when you have here with double elements, all right, then you have a formal parameter. So every one of them refers to a formal parameter. Okay, like here. With triple element, double element, okay. Any questions from this part? So whenever you have a method, okay, all those parameters are called by value, but in fact this value is the address that you've got for it. Like here you've got the address of your array A, the address of an object of type account, for example, okay, and you display the amount. So here, let's say that you swap some elements and you have two arrays. So let's go back to this square now. Okay, and let's call it just numbers because I have several ways of doing it. Okay, make. Okay, let's rename. Rename. Yeah. All right. Then, because I have several operations, so it's no point to call it square numbers. Let's have a public static void, and you want to swap. So swapping means that you change one element from a certain position with another element. So it means that we will swap, and you can put the square braces before or after the name. Like here I can have it with int x like this, or I can put int y in this way, and it's still good. Okay, so it still recognizes it that you have a one-dimensional array. Here you define another one-dimensional array, which is temp. It receives x, then I say that my x will receive y, and y will get my temporary array. So I would like to swap the elements from x to y, okay, and vice versa. So it means that here, let's define this one. A already exists. Okay, so let's put it after. I have an int b, okay, which I define as 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and for it, I want to swap. So I would swap a b, and then I want to also display these elements. So let's see what would be swapped. As you can see, it's exactly the same thing. So here, when having such a reference, it will not swap it, because it's simply having these values of a and b, okay? They are just copied inside x and y, okay? And they are simply discarded afterwards, all right? So they would be copies x and y. They will receive the copies of them, okay? So this is why it will not change. None of them will change. Okay. So even with, let's see, if I put like this, A, and then I have my B, and I have it in this way, you see that it still doesn't swap, because these are instances that you create in just in this, for this lifetime, okay? They are just locally inside the swap function, and they exist just locally. So they will not be updated outside the function. Okay, so even if you put x and y, or them as they were. Then you can have a bubble sort. So we did see a bubble sort last time, when you were changing element by element and seeing whether they do get updated. Okay, so let's write the bubble sort. So this is just for sorting in ascending manner or in descending manner. So everything depends on this greater or equal. So we will have a public static void, and we have our bubble sort. For it, I receive my input data. So it's my input parameter. Then I want to go, because I change one position with another based on successive positions. So this means that I have a check value, which is this Boolean, whether it's changed. So it is as a flag. So firstly, it's false. Then I have my do while. So inside my do while, I do it while I do have changed values. And here, no matter the case, I do enter my bubble sort. So when starting it again, changed will be equal to false. Then I need to go through all the elements of my array. So I will start at 0. I will go up to my data dot length -1 because I compare it with the following element, so I need it to exist. And this is why I have -1, I++, and then I have a curly brace because I have multiple statements inside, such that if my data of I on position I, whether it exceeds, so I want it to be in ascending order. So if you want it to be in descending order, you put it in this way, so you change the sign. So whether it is greater than data of I+1, so you check it according to the following position, it means that you will have an auxiliary variable. You put it of type int because your array contains element of type int, and you receive data of I. Then what will my data of I receive? It will receive the following element because you change one with another based on successive positions. So it will receive I+1. Okay, I can put it in this way to see it better. Then my data of I+1 will receive what? It will receive the auxiliary position. So you usually add these spaces just for reading it better. Okay. Then when having something like this, it means that changed is true. Okay, so you have to check it. Okay. Then what you will do, in fact, okay, let's put it in decreasing order. And in this case, I want to simply have this is called the bubble sort, okay, of A. I receive my A, okay, I provided, all right. And as you can see, it will also be updated according to the reference that you got for your table. So your bubble sort, okay, this is for decreasing, okay, this is for sort in decreasing order, such that here for your bubble sort, my A, the array of A becomes 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, and this is why when calling it with the square, you have each and every element as being just double. Okay, and you get element by element, so it's times 2 times 2. Okay. So this is for decreasing order, and this means that you do the comparison with less than. If you want to put it in ascending order, so in ascending order, it means that the element which comes in front, okay, would be greater than the following, and then you interchange them one with another. Okay. Any questions based on it? So whether you do have a void method, like here, it means that you don't return anything, okay? And whether you do have a return value, you should have exactly the return value based on the parameter which you want to provide. So here you have an integer as an input variable, you just compute it, okay, as being the squared, you just have it with itself multiplied and you return it, such that the return type of this method is also an int. You should think about it. As well as whether you have a return, okay, and then you have other methods like here I can have some other functionality, okay, other steps. This one, it will not be reached, okay, so it says by default that when you have a return, when a function has a return, then it simply gets out of the method. So this one, okay, in fact, will not be reached, okay. And you need the return. If I don't place the return, it will simply say that it misses the return statement. and it should be void. Okay, so void doesn't contain any return, but when you have the return type, which is int or double or no matter what, you should have exactly the return. Okay, so even if I have an else branch, I again need the return. Okay, so it is like here. Whether I have my annual hours to be less than 40, I compute salary. Whether it's greater, I compute the salary. But in the end, I need to return my value. If not, it will say even here that, okay, or you make it void, or you have a return statement, because you exit the function just when you have a return, because it is of type double. Okay, and if I put it void, it will still should never have a return inside it. Okay, so no void function has a return. Okay, all right. Then you can have method overloading. Overloading is when you have the same name, okay, of your function, but here you would have multiple parameters. Okay, so method overloading. For example, here you have a min, but the minimum will return a number of type double because you have two numbers which are of double type. You can have a minimum of floats because you have two floats. Okay, so you can have the square of an integer, or I can put it also in this case, okay, with a double. Okay, and this is double. Okay, and you return the value. So this is the case of itself, and you have this overloading. So you can have even a minimum of two ints, of two longs, as well as based on a method A, I can make it to be void with two parameters, or to be an int, same method name and one parameter, or to be an int and I have no parameter at all, as well as I can have it a long for the method with two arguments of type double and int, because I can cast them and I can compute the result. Okay, and to be of type long. Okay, so even here I can put this long res as being x times x. I put this res, and here it will be of type long for it. Okay, so here you have, as you can see, you have a long and a double. So this is why you need to cast it. So or you cast long, or you change your res to be double. Okay, or you change the result for it. So you can put the long in front, and by casting it, you receive a long result. Okay. Then what you need to do, you just provide the arguments. So you can compile your class with Java, you have the name of your program, and don't forget that you have the package in front. And for it, you can get argument by argument. So it would be based on it. Let's see whether we have something like I have my args program, and for it I have a public static void main, and I have my string args. And now I want to see for it how many arguments do I have as an input. And I also want to get my args of position 0 and args of position 1. But you should check how many elements you've got just to have an output. Okay, so let's see. We are inside the terminal init with Java. So we should enter syspl. Okay, after we have to enter C5, then I have my Java, and I need to compile the class which is args prog dot Java. Okay, And for it, I need to run it with Java, and this is a pl.c5.argsprog, as you have it inside the package. And let's say we have a 1. It should be outside. Wait. Now. Okay, and I have an index out of bounds because it couldn't find my argument. So I have 1 and 2. Okay, so here it wasn't finding it, and it did receive the error. So keep in mind that you are inside the package here, such that when you want to compile it according to one argument, so this one would provide an exception because you cannot access the element being outside the bounds of your array. It means that you need to go outside of it. So you have this cd ... and you would go exactly to the root. So the root will be Java. And inside the folder, which is Java, this one, you have access to plc5 and your file name, okay, which is this argsprog according to your arguments, length, and parameter 1 and 2. Okay, so you should check here how many arguments you've got such that you can trigger this error. Okay, so whether you do not have the second argument provided, then it will display an error. So we can have also val, and it displays. So you can mix up, you can have an integer, you can have a string, and you have them in this case. Okay. Then what you can have, for example, you can also have multiple arguments, like you can get 2 values, you can get 4 values, and when having something like this, you can define a sum. Okay, so let's see, inside numbers, I can have a new method, and my new method would be called public. So it is a public, and you've got the sum and what you obtain as an array. Okay, so in this case, I have my initial sum to be 0. Then I will have a 4. I start from index 0 until I is less than my array dot length with no braces because it's not a string, I++, and my sum would have inside the array of position I, which is added. Then I would simply return the sum. So let's see. Now, whether I want to call it here, I have A and B. Okay, and I want to display. So it will be S out sum. Okay, num of A elements. Okay, it would be equal to sum. What's the name? And it needs the static to be accessible. So we have the sum of A, for example. All right, so running it from here. Okay, sum of elements of A, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the sum is 10. But I can also add another element like 5, and we have one extra element 5, so this is why you've got this 15. So in this way, based on the array, you can have more elements or less elements, and this is when you define the values for it. Okay, so I can even have here, I can call, but I need to display it. See out. I have a sum, and then I have my array. Okay, so as you can see, in this way, you will have to member. So this is the way when you need to define it as being this kind of set. Okay, so you have the new int for it. So you cannot provide a set in this way. You need to say that you have a new integer of 1, 2, 3, and so on. And here you have exactly the two elements. Okay, so you will have 3 based on a new defined array, or you can use the one which is provided for A. Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. According to the method, which is exactly this one, with sum based on your input parameters. Okay. So here you can also have other variables that you define. You have local variables. You have this sum. Okay, this is a local variable and it exists inside the context of your function, which is sum. And based on it, you just add new elements such that sum will receive element by element according to what you've got inside your array. And here you can have multiple elements. So you can have like this one, you can have 2 elements, or you can provide A as your input variable. Here, when you have your public static void main, you also have your args. So it means that you can have one or none element, okay, as well as you've seen it, that you can call it with your arguments example. Let's see, yeah. This is the compiled one, and this is when you get argument by argument. Yeah, the args example. Okay. So you just receive based on its capacity, and you see exactly what you have inside. All right. Then, if you have a recursion is when you think it in an iterative manner. So you will call it again and again. So for example, you have base cases when you just compute something, or you can have recursive cases, such that whether you want to compute the factorial, whether you have 0 factorial, this is equal to 1. Whether you have n factorial, this is when you multiply n by the result when you can have the same call of your method factorial, but you update this n to have a decreased value. So let's go again inside what I called to be numbers. Okay. And this one. All right. So we are here inside. Now, what I can have here is to also have a method public static, and then I have int factorial of argument int n. So this is a recursive function, okay? Recursive function because it calls itself until it reaches the end, okay? So it means that you have an n, whether this n is 0, you just return the value 1. 0 factorial, okay, is 1. Else, what you would return is in fact my value n, for which I need to multiply it with the result of the same function that I called for an updated value, which is n minus 1. Okay, so if I call it here, and I say a cout factorial, well, directly 5 factorial is equal to, and I have my factorial of 5. Okay, and I want to run it. It will multiply it 1 by 1. Okay, so it will multiply each and every one of them, being 1 multiplied by 2, by 3, by 4, and by 5. Okay, so this is how you can write it in this recursive manner. Okay, then in the same way you can write Fibonacci. Yeah, you have 2 cases. when you have, so for a Fibo of 0, you have as element 0. For a Fibonacci of 1, this is equal to 1. Then this is when the next elements, you compute them as being the sum of the previous two members. So you have 1, 1, then you have 2, 3, 5, 8, okay. So let's see how you would do it in another recursive manner, so that you have a public static, to call it from inside the context of this class. You have an int Fibonacci of my number k. So first of all, if my k is less than 2, if I have just two numbers, I need to return itself. So it means that whether it's a 0, I return 0, whether it's a 1, I return this 1. So I return the number itself. If not, I need to return what? I have my Fibo of the previous two members. So it will be k minus 1 plus my Fibonacci of k minus 2. Okay. So let's see how it works. So first of all, I have my Fibonacci k of, I can have this 3. Okay, so it will be my fib of 3. So let's see the answer. So Fibonacci of 3 is 2, because what do I add? So I have the first number as being, okay, I have 0, 1, then the next one, okay, will be 2. Okay, so let's have it like this. Fibonacci of 2. Fibonacci of 2 returns what? I have Fibo of 2 minus 1, which is 1, plus Fibonacci of 2 minus, okay, 2, which is 0. So this one I will have here, Fibonacci of 2 is equal to what? Is my k 2 less than 2? No. This means that I will return the Fibonacci of k minus 1, which is 1, plus Fibonacci of k minus 2, which is 0. So this means that my Fibonacci of 2 is equal to 1 plus 0, which is 1. Okay, and this is why I have it 1. Then my Fibonacci of 3, okay, is how much? I have my Fibonacci of 3 as being n minus 1, which is 2, plus Fibonacci of 1. How much is Fibonacci of 2? Well, it's the one which is before, so this is 1. How much is Fibonacci of 1? Well, it's also 1 according to this rule, so this is why I have it as being 2. So keep in mind that even these ones, you need to break it, okay, until you reach these elements for which you end the recursion. So it's again, even for, let's say you have the fourth element of Fibonacci, okay, 4, you have Fibo of 4. So Fibo of 4 is what? Is Fibo of 3, okay, plus 2. Then my Fibo of 4 is equal to what? Fibo of 3 is 1. Is my Fibo of 2 plus Fibo of 1, plus my Fibo of 2 is what? Is my Fib of 1 plus Fib of 0. And for these ones, I know that I can quit. But for Fibo of 2, I need to break it. So my Fibo of 4 is equal to what? I have my Fibo of 1 plus Fibo of 0 plus what I have here. And now I can get my answers. Okay. So it means that, okay, I have what? My FIBO of 4 as being what? FIBO of 1 is 1 plus FIBO of 0 is what? Is 0 plus FIBO of 1 is 1, 1 and 0, and okay, this is why you will have the next member as being 3, okay, based on this one. And the next one will be 2 plus 3, which is 5. So Fibonacci, okay, you have it of 5, and you break it in the same manner, okay, with 4, and then you've got a 3, and you get these ones. So you have them added, and it will be 5, and then the next one will be 3 plus 5, which is 8, okay, based on all the previous recursive functions. Okay. And this is how you compute each one of them. Clear for everyone? What you can do is also to compute the greatest common divisor. So the greatest common divisor is based on 2 numbers. Okay, you have A and B. So whether B is equal to 0, and this will be your quit condition, you will return A. If not, you see that you do the swapping. Element, so the first element will get B, while the second element will receive A modulus B. Okay. So whether you have the greatest common divisor of 14 and 21, you call it as it is, and you will see that you have here, if 21 equals 0, it will not be the case, or else you have to compute this one. You have now, I will have on the position A, I have my value, which is 21, and here I have to compute the value of this 14 modulus 21. All right, so you compute them one by one. So let's see it in action. It's better. Again, because it's not so much time, I will paste it. And for it to be easier, I have the else. And for my else, you see that you compute this A modulus B. So I will have here S out, I have A equal to, okay, A, and I also have B equal to, and I have plus B. Okay, then I want to compute how much is A modulus B, and I will have my, okay, I have it A modulus B. All right, and this one disappears, and I have them one by one. So let's call it here at the beginning. So I have greatest common divisor, and let's say it's 14 and 21, and I need to display it so it returns an int. So I will display it in this case. Okay. Let's see. First of all, okay, you have 14 for A and B, which is 21. Now you will have the result for it, and you will have this 14 modulus 21, the remainder, in fact, okay, so it is the Romanian rest, is in fact 14. What you need to do now, you see that you swap the results such that A will become 21, as you can see. So the value of B comes here. And the value of B is the one of the modulus, so it's 14. So here if I do A modulus B, in fact, if I have 14 modulus 21, what I have here, so it would be 0, and the remainder is this 14. Okay, it is your rest. And the Romanian cât is 0. Then having it with A with 21 and B as being 14, if I do 21 modulus B, then I have 7 as being my remainder, okay? So our Romanian code would be 1, and then the remainder, the rest, okay, would be 7. And in this case, my A will be B, so this is why I have 14, and my B will be this remainder, which is 7, okay? And if I will have A modulus B, I have 14, which is divided by 7, so the remainder is 0. And in this case, when my B is 0, it means that I return A. So the greatest common divisor in this case, the greatest common divisor of 14 and 21, it is indeed 7, because every number gets divided by it, and it is the greatest divisor that these two numbers have. Okay. And now just to finish this slide, because it is the end of the class, so you have this tail recursion. So this is when you see it as being a stack. Okay. So as you can see, you have here, you change one by one, being in a recursive manner, and you have it here, like for the factorial, you can do it one by one. Okay, so it is called as the call itself is also a last function. So even for Fibo, as you were seeing it, you are simply decomposing the calls, okay, and taking them one by one until you were reaching the simplest cases, which were 0 and 1, okay. So even here, you just change the position between them such that you get the remainder, okay. And based on the remainder, you just divide until you don't have any remainder for it. So whether it is 0, it means that it got divided and you have the final answer. Okay. So if you have any questions, if not, being the end of the class, I thank you for your attention and see you next time. So I will end my recording here. And if you do have any other